So, League of Legends released a new champion. Better open up. Unless you've been living in the jungle for the past few days, or you randomly decided to use me as your main source of information, in which case, as a nobody, no rank, nothing, I am kind of flattered, then you probably heard that there's a new champion coming out for League of Legends by the name of Neeko, who takes the form of a chameleon, like, wizard girl thing. If you don't have her abilities memorized yet, here are a quick refresher on them. With her Q being a blooming burst style thing that looks like it'll be interesting if you manage to hit all of the things properly, or at the least satisfying even if you don't use it properly. Her W, which has a pretty basic passive ability on there, but its active is going invisible for a second and making a clone that runs off in a straight line direction, which looks like it'll be useful as an escape ability. Her E, which looks like it's one of the most bizarrely situational stuns in the game, since it only stuns the last person you hit, but at least slows down everyone else, so pray that you don't hit two champions by accident and the one who has the higher movement speed who can kill you is the closer one. With her final active ability being her R, which is... well, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really sure how to talk about it. It's a sort of area effect thing that requires you to get close to your enemy and then it explodes. I think I'm going to have to actually play her to get an idea of what it does. Which, as a quick disclaimer, I have not gotten a chance to play her yet since I'm not in any of the playtesting stuff, so all of the things from here on out that aren't just talking about her abilities is going to be me speculating and theorizing. And speculating and theorizing is going to be the name of the game with her passive, which is honestly something that I've wanted to see in the game for a while. Namely, the ability to disguise yourself as other champions in the game and take advantage of that and the confusion it creates in order to create situations in fights. What makes this passive even better is that you can proc it with your W in order to create more opportunities, with the trailer showing off a few great examples of this, the best one being the 3 Hecrims charging down the jungle, and oh no, look, they managed to get him easily. Except me, as a know-nothing player, can already see some issues with her passive. Now, the character that her passive is getting compared to the most out of any other game is the spy from Team Fortress 2, which, while on the surface that is an interesting comparison, I don't think it's really doing justice to the spy from Team Fortress 2 here, since hers has some definitive drawbacks to it, namely the fact that if she takes any damage, well, her illusion is going to break, which is a major thing you can use against her. If you would allow me to, let's go back to that situation of having 3 Hecrims charging you up through the jungle again. If I was in the situation of the person being charged and I was a champion like, say, Morgana or Soraka, or really any of the ones I play who have an AoE, then I would drop the AoE slightly closer to me and in the path of 2 of them. Essentially what I would have there is, if they run straight over it without really taking damage or not taking any damage at all, then I know that one is the clone. If they run over it and they transform, well, congratulations, I now know which one is Neeko. Or if they run over it and they take damage but they don't transform, then I know which one of them is the one I'm going to have to stun or run away from. The same goes true for if they try to dodge around it, because if they try dodging around it and away from me, then I have the at least suspicion that that one is going to be Neeko, which means I'm going to want to go and stun the one running closer to me. If they run over it and don't make any attempt to dodge at all, then I know that one has to be the clone, since the clone can only move in a straight line. And if they dodge around it and come right at me, then I know that one is going to be the real jungler and the one I'm going to have to to stun. So right there, even in that example, me as someone who really doesn't know too much about this game has some ideas and strategies of how to counter her passive. But that is just one of the examples they have in there, since another one shows her copying Warwick, then running and ambushing the enemy, as making them think, oh no, it's Warwick, then oh no, it's Neeko, which honestly, using it like that would be suicide, since seeing a Warwick, your first response would be to stun it. So unless you have a jungler following up behind you, or a jungler on the other side waiting to ambush them when they try running away from you doing that, then it's kind of a really weird thing to just go and do like that, since you're essentially telling them, hey, I'm Warwick, but then when you take damage, they're going to see, oh, I'm just Neeko, a support, who is unsupported right now, in the middle of an enemy team who is very keen on killing me, and you probably won't make it out of that situation without burning through some of your other resources or calling on your team for support, unless you were just using that as the opening phases for an attack, in which case, well, you're a support putting yourself in a position where a tank or someone else probably would have actually survived the encounter. Then there's the situation they showed at the start with an escaping Ezreal diving into the bush, then Neeko disguised as Ezreal diving out of the bush and them attacking you, only to realize, oh no, I attacked the wrong one, and Ezreal to attack you. But my main issue with that one is it would require you to sort of set it up beforehand and hope your passive isn't on cooldown. Since something I haven't mentioned yet is, you know, all those times you take damage from, say, the enemy shooting you because they think you're the tank, or dropping down an AoE thing to try to clear and check you? Well, not only does that completely cancel out your disguise, it also increases the cooldown time on the next time you're able to do it, which means it's going to take longer and be harder for you to actually properly set up being disguised next time, which means you can't actually really rely on her main ability all the time, or even in the middle of a team fight if you just took damage and then see, oh, Ez take damage and I need to help him out, and no, my ability's actually on cooldown. Now, getting back to why I said it'd be unfair to compare the spy to her, since, well, they both disguise, so that must mean they're the same. The issue with that is the spy disguising is able to take advantage of and use his disguises on his own. You can be a great spy on a bad team and still be able to make plays, whereas if you would be a great Neeko on a bad team, well, you might not be able to do anything with that, since if you have a Warwick or any other jungler or any other teammate who you're supposed to disguise yourself as, and they're doing really badly, then they're just not going to be scared of you and they're going to auto-attack you anyway, which is the last thing that makes it unfair to compare the spy to her, in that the spy can disguise himself as members of the enemy team, since if you're disguised as the enemy team, you're going to fool them for a second, maybe, just maybe, by sheer virtue of them not expecting someone on their team to be the spy in order to make a play, and they're not going to automatically shoot at you per se. Whereas if you're Neeko and you're disguised as someone on your team, well, they're just going to shoot you anyway, which means her passive is going to get procced down already, and congratulations, you're just encouraging them to shoot at you again without really doing anything other than confusing them for a second, unless you have another master plan in there. Seriously, I don't think I'm the only person to really say any of this, since looking around on the subreddit, there was already another player there who playtested her, who said that her passive was really underwhelming and didn't work against pro players, which I will admit is a common argument used against the spy in his thing, since according to most players, a good spy doesn't work against great players, since they'll just see through him. Also, as a quick side note, the same thread where I got that one thing from, there was also another person who said that you can hide as jungle monsters and use that to set up ambushes, and well, here's my response to that on screen, with the extra added thing of, even if you did manage to set it up in a very convincing way, if the jungler walks up to it and sees that blue buff isn't standing in the exact position blue buff always stands in, then they're going to know something is up and might just take a second to think about it, especially if they know there's a Neeko on the other team. The final main point I'm going to bring up about Neeko is that even though she's a new champion in the game, and even though I have not yet had a chance to play against her, I already know there's a hard counter in the game for her. And he is the hard counter, the champion that people hate more than anything else. Frickin' Teemo. More specifically, Teemo's ours, since if you go back to that one situation with the 3 Hecrims, they're charging down, up, one of them hits a mushroom, it explodes, gets all over the place, you instantly know which one is Neeko, which one's the jungler. Neeko's taking damage over time from the mushroom, so she can't disguise again on top of not having her disguise on her, and you can take advantage of it. Or if you go back to that other Warwick example with charging and attacking that way, she goes through that bush in order to get in there, up, hits a mushroom, she loses her disguise, she's taking damage over time and is slowed, and they immediately know, okay, I should probably shoot you, since now your team has to rush in to save you, instead of just using that as an opportunity to ambush or do other things. And if you try to do the Ezreal thing, and you're like, okay, come in the bush here, and you get in the bush, and you set off a mushroom, well, congratulations. Now you might not be able to proc your passive at all, and you're taking damage, and you might actually be splashing damage onto the Ezreal too. So Neeku's hard counter already exists in the game in the form of Teemo's R. This is all without really mentioning how any basic attacks or abilities with splash damage in general would just make her passive a lot less useful, especially if they chose the right target in the first place, or if they just started warding a lot more often and you happen to transform in the exact bush they had a ward and they see you and know you're there and just take advantage of that to collapse in on you. Essentially what you're left with is Neeko is a support champion, which yeah, that part is obvious, but she's a support champion who has a passive that is fairly restrictive in terms of how she can support, given that her other abilities aren't really able to do much in terms of supporting beyond just basic battle stuff. And that's to say nothing about the reports I've already read of people planning on playing her in the jungle just to see what happens. With everything I've said so far, you're probably starting to think to yourself that I really hate Neeko and I'm never actually going to play her and I'll just counter her perfectly every time. To which I say,
no.
No, why would I do that? I'm totally going to play her. Like, yeah, I'm a scrub at League of Legends, so even though I have these ideas and goals in mind for what I want to do with her, if I end up in the Hecarim situation myself in the middle of a live game, I'm probably going to do something stupid like accidentally flash towards them and set off my other abilities that I needed to escape, or just completely not even notice they're coming in until the Hecarim got me. And not every game is going to have a Teemo in it, and frankly, I think I am going to try her out in the jungle at least once just to see what happens, or even try to talk my jungler into doing that blue buff thing, since the main appeal of the spy in TF2 is that for but a moment you can pretend to be something that you aren't. You can pretend to be a different class and use that to your advantage. So with Neeko, I can finally pretend to be a real jungler and succeed. So besides from my incredibly low ambitions in life, what do you guys think? Am I completely off base with the idea that Teemo is going to be a hard counter to her? Or do I have just a fundamental misunderstanding of how her kit would work? Like I said before, I haven't had a chance to play her yet, but when I do play her, I'm actually going to go and try to use the knowledge I have here, both for and against her, and I'm honestly curious what you guys will come up with too, especially since most of the stuff I have for her is mainly just applying the things I have against her in reverse. So having the jungler lead off, or having the jungler set up in the ambush, or going around the AoE thing and charging at them so you have two of them charging at you instead. You know, minor stuff like that that might actually help improve your games. Either way, this has been That Man Over There. Thank you for listening, and have a good day. Actually, one quick final note about Neeko. You know how she talks like this in the trailer?
Neeko, investigate. Stay hidden.
Yeah, I can't hear that without also starting to hear, well, this.
Yoshi, big flighty cat! Run away from Princess and Mario